Happy Friday. I am so excited to be bringing you my new full moon and new moon series here to YouTube to explain through the lens of human design how we track the lunar transits and how to work with the energy most effectively. Because in human design, every single planetary placement, every single of the one of the 12 signs of the zodiac is ruled by 6 different gates in human design as they're known, which incorporates degree theory into the vast system that is known as human design with many different areas. So let's get to it. Okay, so what we're looking at here is a human design body graph as created for when the moon enters Leo on February 10th in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. I'm an East Coast girly, so I'm always going to use New York City as my reference point just to kind of give you a little bit of a sense of when the moon is entering Leo. Now, when we're looking at the planetary transits or the transits of the moment and what gate they're in, we're always going to look at the personality side in human design, otherwise known as the conscious side. So basically, when we're starting off with the moon in Leo, this is actually a couple gates in to the transit, but we always look at when the moon is leaving Cancer and entering to Leo. It's going to actually start with gate 56 in human design. And gate 56 is for people who have placements that are very late degree Cancer. So you're also going to see when the moon is in Cancer, it's going to be in a late degree for gate 56 or an early degree Leo placement, 0 degree even Leo placement in human design. So gate 56 sits in what's known as the throat center or the throat chakra, because we have the chakras that are connected to human design. Gate 56 is all about communication of ideas and storytelling. And in human design, we call things a mutative action. So basically, when you have something that causes a mutative action, it begets another action. So when you speak something aloud with gate 56, gate of the storyteller, it allows somebody to do something or to create a response or a reaction. Gate 56's full enaction of this process is just by when I blurt something out loud, when I share, when I communicate, then the process is complete. I've created that full mutative process for me, and then I see how other people, run with that idea that I've shared, that story that I've shared, laugh at my joke, have a reaction to the story that I've shared in real time. And I have a lot of folks who follow me on here that actually have gate 11 and even this full channel, and you'll notice some of the similarities there. Gate 11 in human design is a Sagittarius gate placement known as the gate of ideas. I made a short about this not too long ago. Now, what's interesting is when you see gate 56 through the lens of Leo, right, and being a late degree Leo placement, and for those of you who are familiar with astrology, critical degrees or anaretic degrees, specifically when Leo or any placement is in the 29th degree, we see here that there's this emphasis to use gate 56 through the lens of Leo as an incredibly vivacious, energetic, charismatic qualities of Leo that really get people engaged. So as we enter into this full moon, we'll enter it in, usher it into Leo with the energy of vitality, with the energy of excitement and enjoyment and wanting things to shift and move around and be a little bit more robust in our actions. This gate is known as the gate of stimulation, but also more colloquially as the gate of the storyteller, somebody who is incredibly charismatic. And with any gate in human design or any placement, we can use our powers for good or not so great nefarious purposes, right? People who use these placements in their exalted state or their detrimental state, right? The way that we use it, it's like, what wolf do we feed? And I always say that the way that I approach this information is by being incredibly informed about the way that we use these placements, right? Like I could tell somebody they had the best chart in the world, and this is the best gate placement to have to work with the full moon, and what we need to release, right? The full moon is about release energy to be able to call in something new with the new moon. And so gate 56 gives us this opportunity to look at what are the old stories that we've been told or that we're telling ourselves. Gate 56, and anyone who has this placement in the throat center is somebody who does share stories and omit certain information to prove a point, which can be good, when it comes to certain aspects of marketing or knowing that you can lose people when you get too much into the nitty-gritty details of things. However, it's where we see when used for negative purposes, lying, not telling untruths, telling half truths, and being manipulative for the sake of being manipulative under the guise of charisma, right? So it's an opportunity not only for us to look at other people in our lives and to be discerning of who we need to let go, who are the fibbers and the storytellers, but also to look at ourselves and say, okay, what are the things that I've been telling myself that are untrue that I need to release in order to call in my manifestations when the new moon comes about in about a couple weeks. And as we leave gate 56, we enter into gate 31, which is the gate placement that we see in front of me here. We're specifically always going to be looking at this little moon icon, and it's at 1600 hours in New York City on February 12th, right? So the full moon is actually on on February 10th. The full moon is actually on February 12th. And Gate 31, as you notice, also sits in the throat center, right? It's the gate of influence. It's having influence on people and noticing with the Leo full moon in mind, where can we let go of the ways that we've tried to exert our influence or be influential on the wrong people in the wrong ways, rather than, okay, who are the people that we want to influence, that we want to grow with, right? That we want to speak with, that we want to have influence on in order to help them in some way. I attract a lot of people that are aspiring coaches or current coaches, healers, astrologers, people that are incredibly heart focused and want to help people, but also have that give and take in return of like, I influence you, but you respect me, those beneficial aspects of Leo, using your words in terms of having power, right? And being respected for that power. A big word that's been going around through a lot of different astrologers in this space has been sovereignty, and the penultimate, aspects of power and having power. It's a lot of this, and I made an Instagram post about this week, which is about where can you regain your power, where can you gain your sovereignty, right? And where can you have more sovereignty and power in your own life, and what do you need to release that's holding you back from having or exerting your influence and your power. It's also really interesting with this full moon and gate 31 is that it teaches us that we can speak, as powerfully as we want. We can say intense and bold and polarizing things. You can see this in the leadership in our world. But ultimately, when we are leaders, we want to make sure that we are leading from the place of the collective, the way that I was taught and the way that you'll hear through traditional human design, anything through Ra Uru, is that leadership is about being, it's not a hierarchy, right? It's about people that are voted in and backed by the majority versus people who pay to play for their spots. And it's crazy, even in this industry, how much has been uncovered to me this year, which has really changed the way that I want to show up in this space as a mentor and a guide. And knowing how many people have paid for their positions, even in disciplines where they express or tell us that they care for us, right? It's not just for our governmental political systems. This is really a trait that has infiltrated all aspects of life and power, and how, I say this and I've said this, for the last 4 years now, this time until 2027 is like a sieve that's being shaken. All the gold is rising to the top, but our structures as we know them, our positions of power as we know them, are kind of falling away. And I just had this conversation with my projectors over in our Patreon for how I'd never want to take away someone's independence or power, but rather me being a puzzle piece that, fits into their puzzle for this time, gives them the tools, they go off into the world, then we come back and meet again as a place of support so that everyone feels empowered. And that's really what this gate inspires us to do with this full moon. What do you have to release to get to a place of power? And what's the tangible step is what I like to give people that's going to get them there most effectively. We also have gate 33, which sits in the throat center, which is known as the gate of privacy, and really choosing to understand how our words have power, right? How our words have influence. It's the last of those Leo gates that sit in the throat center, and choosing when to speak. It's the Leos that are very analytical, that like look at you and know how to read between the lines. They're very secret and private about their own life, although they want recognition and attention. It's like, somebody that so clearly and feel like is in the public eye, but you only know what the cards that they're showing you, right? And the other cards they keep very close to their chest, teaching us like, where is it healthy for us to not share all of our cards all the time, but when is it also helpful for us to be private? I'll say with these placements too, and a lot of what I tell my defined throats or my manifesting generators, especially, and something that I learned, is to not share things before they're ready, right? And a lot of us are feeling this pull, especially when I talk about the last gate, that is gate 29, that's closing us out. with the full moon. I have a lot of folks that have gate 29 in their human design body graph, gate 46 as well. It sits in this channel, which we'll talk about. But there's this feeling, and I get a lot of Aries too, this feeling of like trying not to be impulsive, right? And not saying like, we don't need 6 posts that say coming soon, coming soon, coming soon. It's, getting the Instagram and the social media handles quietly, and then just tell us when it's released, right? Not to create your fourth, fifth, 12th social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube account, right? It's like just letting us know when the thing is ready, and allowing yourself to not preemptively get that adrenaline hit because you're too impatient to wait. That's a lot of what the gate 33, gate of privacy, can teach us. Where can you release your impulsivity? Where can you release things that you've been maybe too private about in an unhealthy way that are taking your power away? Sometimes, and depending on the secrets, our secrets can keep us sick. Getting the right help that we need to step into our power, but also, on the flip side, and you'll know, you best at the end of the day for how this applies, but where can you, allow yourself to be a little bit more guarded from being able to understand what your heart needs at this time, not blocking your heart off, but just being discerning about who and what you share your information with. I was watching another influencer that I found via YouTube actually, who is pregnant, and she shared was going, into a story about how she shared her baby name with somebody. And they were just like, like interesting, and didn't really, weren't very kind, or at least very expressive, and expressed more of a distaste for the name rather than celebratory, and she was saying how, well, that's an inside reaction, right? Like we think those thoughts inside, we're kind out loud. And so, it's also being discerning about those types of things now too. I think it's just a funny story to kind of go into that before we go into our more cerebral gates here. So the next gate transit that we have in Leo, right, bringing us right into the middle of the 6 gates, is actually gate 7. And folks who have gate 7 and gate 31 have what's called the channel of the alpha. So people who are meant to be incredibly influential. I've read for quite a few celebrities and people who are higher up in the spiritual space that are leaders in some way. And so gate 7 is the gate of the role of the self and interaction, or more specifically, the gate of the army leader. If you're somebody that has the incarnation cross, the right angle cross of the Sphinx, you're also going to have this gate placement in your top 4 quadrants here. Gate 49, gate 4, 43, 23. Those are the 4 gates that will be different for everybody, but that make up the 4 gates of your incarnation cross in human design. It's funny because I have a lot of people that are born during this time of year, a lot of Aquarians, a lot of Scorpios, a lot of Taurans, a lot of Leos, as you can see, all fixed modalities that have a lot of these placements, right? So gate 7, as you can see here, we're coming out of the throat center and getting into the G center, which is all about love and direction. It's the one that even though this is called the heart and the ego center, this in human design is what exudes more love. If you also have the right angle cross of the vessel of love, all 4 of the gates of your incarnation cross, gate 15, 10, etc., all sit in this center. And it's really teaching us, okay, with this full moon in Leo, how do we approach leadership or being a leader, right? Having this ability to want to lead in some way. And this could be being the leader of your family. It doesn't have to mean that you have to, go and jump into local government or politics, or, be the next spiritual mentor online, unless that you feel that that's truly your calling. But to not diminish how we can all lead in our own sense of power, blooming where we're planted, where our feet are firmly grounded on the ground, right? And how and whom we want to lead, and who it's important for us to lead, and how do we lead them. I'm just going to pivot to reading to you the 4 or 6, excuse me, different ways that people who have this gate can think about leading. We have the authoritarian, the democrat, the anarchist, the abdicator, the general, and the administrator. And with any words, especially when you're doing your own discovery in human design, I encourage you to Google or just do a quick, dictionary search for what the definition is for those words, especially if you have this placement, to discern your type of leadership qualities. When you have gate 7, it'll say, to use, let's see, 17 as an example, or 53. You want to look at the profile line that comes after. I want in order, 1 being authoritarian, 6 being the administrator there, for your own research. Basically, this little description I'll read to you is: through your role and with your understanding of humanity's future direction, you persuade others to follow your leadership, therefore influencing people in positions of influence themselves, especially those who have gate 31. So this is where we can see two Leo aspects working together to say, okay, and I feel like this a lot as a mentor and a reader, like, what are your strengths? What are your skill sets that you have to offer? And how can I highlight them? And how do we work together to make sure that we're taking care of everybody? Because I always say, I can't do this work alone, right? It requires all of us to step into our power, very Pluto and Aquarius for the next 20 years. And if I have anything to do with it, helping each individual build their own pedestal on which they can stand and how they can lead and be influential. So thinking about through this Leo full moon, how do you want to lead and whom do you want to lead? We're just planting seeds, right? Like for the new moon, it's more about the specifics, which will be in Pisces, but really looking at, okay, what are my values? On the 10th, we actually have Venus that's trining the moon, but Venus is retrograde. So it's an extra emphasis when anything's retrograde on reevaluating what we value and what do we value out of power, and what does power really mean to us? How do we identify and understand what power truly means as an individual, as a part of the collective, and do we want the type of power that we think that we do? I always, as you guys know, I'm a big Housewives Bravo person. And something that I was watching for Real Housewives of Orange County is Heather Dubrow, who, is very wealthy and has a really luxurious lifestyle, right? And she was saying how, after you get to a certain level of wealth, and I'm reading and interjecting and putting some words in her mouth, but it made me think, like, she wanted to leave her massive, gorgeous home that she, build from ground up, right? Literally. And she didn't want to do what was needed for the labor that's needed to manage all the people that just manage your home, right? And I think that from what we're going through right now, which is Leo full moon is teaching us with that Venus retrograde, aspecting our moon here, is like, when you think about how much money you want, eventually you get to the point where you have to start managing your money. That's what the whole industry of wealth management is about. And so when you have things, you have to start to, realize that you start to manage the things, right? And if you're somebody that's more cerebral, which we'll get into in a second, a more cerebral aspect of this full moon in Leo, it's like realizing, like, well, what are the things that I want to spend my time managing or thinking about managing or delegating to other people to manage, right? Eventually, when we grow our own businesses, we have different things that we want to manage, that we need to manage in some different way, and really deciding, like, I love a big, beautiful house and I love the idea of that. But do I also want to be the person that's responsible for hiring the landscapers and the architects and the cleaning people and the maintenance staff that are required to do that, right? And some of you may say yes, and others of you may be like, hell no, I don't want to manage people. I'm introverted. I don't want to do all that, and less is more to me. And so I encourage you to think about what is redefining your relationship to power. And thinking about that is also really good during this full moon. Next is actually one of my favorite Leo gate placements, and this because it actually creates this full channel in my human design. I am a gate 63 Pisces sun, and my sun gate is a hanging gate, meaning that it looks like gate 17. It's hanging down, looking to grasp onto the energy that sits at the other side of it, gate 4. And I always explain gate 4, gate of formulation, because it sits in the Ajna center, as like the respectfully arrogant, affluent professor. It's so funny because I'm actually wearing my scarf like one of my favorite art history professors, Barbara Mundy, at Fordham, where I went to school. And it's like that air. She always wore all black, beautiful bob, glasses, and an Hermes scarf, right? Like that was her uniform. And that's the energy of gate 4. It's like very cerebral, very intellectual, coming up to the logical mind, mental ideas, concepts, the Ajna center as it's known. Only 30% of the population actually have this defined. So most of us are in the majority, like myself, of having it undefined. But with gate 4 in relation to the Leo full moon, it's really giving yourself an assessment, another layer of things. And I'm going to be doing a Patreon full moon circle. So it's free to the members of my Patreon. It's just a $20 buy-in to work with us together collectively as a part of our full moon circle. That'll be held via Zoom to release what's needed, and thinking about concepts, mental loops, things that you've been mulling over that you just don't need anymore, that are taking away your power, thoughts that are being put into your mind about what we should or shouldn't do collectively based on, things that are going on in the greater, wider world. What do we need to release when it comes to those areas? So really paying attention and focusing on that is going to be really important now. I always say it's like, where can you feel more empowered? It's a time from now until we have a Mars that's going direct, and then we're going to have a Pisces planet pile up, as a couple of astrologers have been saying, rightfully so. And you guys know I love my alliteration with my human design hotline, my human design happy hour. But we're basically coming to this point for now, and then working with the new moon in Pisces and saying, okay, where do I need to amp up my knowledge a little bit more? Where can I feel empowered by the intellectual mind and gain sovereignty, within my mind, and have a lot of that coming from a place of power in my logical headspace, and feeling equipped mentally and educated about the things that are important for me to be educated about, and where can I trim the fat on the things that just aren't important, that are taking away from me being able to think clearly. And this brings us to our last gate here for the full moon in Leo. And the gate that the moon will be completely full in is gate 29. Gate 29 is known as the gate of perseverance. I say it's the yes person gate that wants to commit themselves. And it's funny because I always say, like, I am a Pisces, right? Scorpio moon, Aquarius rising. So I'm intuitive. And a lot of what the energy is giving me, or what I've been channeling, and as I'm sitting here, it's restraint, and I'm holding my hands, and I'm not saying that you should be restrained, but this is more of a time with this Leo full moon to say, okay, how can I, and similar to what I talked about with Geek 33, how can I remain composed when the world is trying to drag my head around in 19 different directions, right? How can I really take a beat? And a beat doesn't even mean that long. I actually have some projectors that have this placement, which you talk about quite often, that I've mentored before. And it was, me encouraging this person to really understand and identify what they're saying yes to, especially for those of you who have, two of these gates, all of these gates or channels here, emotional authority and human design. And so really paying attention to how you are, emotionally in tune, what you're saying yes to, what you should be saying no to, and really understanding why you're saying yes to something. This is incredibly impactful because we also still have Mars in Cancer that's retrograde. That's why we see this detrimental arrow here, because Mars in Cancer already is, a little bit challenging. It gives a clouded, murky energy, the moon ruling your Mars. So you being more impulsive based on how you feel, wanting to get things over with. And it's a lot of what I've been saying is, how do we persevere in the face of adversity anyway? Like, how can we really go forward and say, okay, I know that the world wants me to think and react one way. If we think about all the news and all the things that are happening, especially for my East Coast people, a lot going on in the sky and earth, and a lot of my fellow astrologers that I've been consulting have been saying a lot of things going on in terms of, like, airspace. And again, we're in like the age of Aquarius. It's Aquarius season, an air sign, a lot of air activity being highlighted right now, for the good and the benefit of advancement, but also for, using your discernment for why you're being told certain things repeatedly, is what I'll say in the context of this. And so really being aware of, like, okay, I'm not just going to say yes or no to that thing. I really want to identify when I sit down, and especially getting into and in tune with your authority, right? With the gate 29, it sits on our sacral. Sacral is all about like a creation. It's a motor center. It gets us to go ahead and do something. But, especially when it's a hanging gate, for those folks who don't have this channel of discovery or gate 46 across from it, it's saying, okay, when I get into my gut, right? And I think about, like, putting my hands on my gut, on my emotional center, my solar plexus, on my spleen, my heart, my head, mental projector authority, whatever, what have you. What do I want? Like, and getting really clear on not what you want in relation to what Brenna shows you that you should want, or what, this person that seems really successful in this discipline, what they're doing for success, but what do you want? What are you saying yes to, and why are you saying yes to that thing? Is it for a temporary high, or to get out of a lower rut and it's impulsive and it's not necessarily healthy for you? What are you doing this for? Why are you sending that text message? Why are you calling that person? Why are you deleting that thing? Why are you blocking this person? And it doesn't mean that those things are bad, right? I'm a good believer in good, healthy boundaries. I have a lot of Scorpio in my chart, right? Which helps my Pisces sun stay in check. But like really understanding what are you in it for and what are you doing this for is a really great practice that I encourage a lot of folks to pay attention to. That's going to be incredibly helpful during this full moon in Leo. Not to let your head get dragged around by the good, the fancy, the bright, the luxurious, the exotic, and really decide like, well, what am I in it for? And how can I keep my personal power amidst all of the craziness that is in the world? So these 6 placements also apply, and what I've shared are just also good discernment pieces, shadow work pieces, especially if any of you have any of those Leo gates on your design side or your unconscious. That's a great place for shadow work or dealing with shadow work. So yeah, I will leave you with that for now. A lot of things to digest. If you want to join us over on Patreon on the full moon, I have a little description for that. So you could sign up in the comments below and join us over there. If you're a member of my Patreon, you already have seen the links at this point. I'm wishing you a very happy and healthy full moon in Leo. And if you have any questions, please, you know where to find me. So thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon.